I have so much to say about Ginault watches, the brand, the watches themselves, and this watch that is now on my wrist. So much, in fact, that I'm at a little bit of a loss of where to start. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches. And now I do know where to start. I need to start by thanking Ginault. Ginault reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to borrow a couple of our watches? And I said, yes, please. I would really like to see the silent service in particular. As you would have noticed, no sponsored icon pop up. I don't get to keep these watches. There's nothing in it for me other than the fact that I now get to have this in my collection for a short period of time. Get to wear this watch, get to experience this watch, get to share it with you guys, and then there'll be a sad moment when I then have to send these back. But that's perfectly okay because I'm really excited about having the silent service in my collection, even if it is only for a short time, because this watch has been on my wish list for a very long time. I've considered buying this particular watch for well over a year. In fact, probably more 2 years, because I wanted to have a watch that I knew was going to be the quality of the Ginault watches, because I've had experience with them before, but I also really love the look of it. The only thing that's actually stopped me buying it now is that I have a couple other watches in my collection that perhaps are not the same, but they kind of fill the spot that this watch might fill. And if I bought it, I'd probably have to consider selling one of those other watches. It is really the only thing that has stopped me buying one. So it is so nice now to actually get some hands-on with this particular one and have a little bit more of an educated thought about should I actually swap this for one of the watches that is already in my collection. Now, I do actually have a lot to say about this watch. I have a lot to say about the brand, but I'm not going to do that today. I think there's too much to say in a first impressions video. This is just me having a bit of a quick look at this watch. It only arrived a few days ago, and pointing out to you the key things that have really stood out to me beyond what I could see on the website. Because when you look on the website, there's some great pictures, there's a lot of information, but it's not until you get a watch in the hand that you really then go, wow, that looks amazing. Wow, that looks amazing. And they're the things I'm going to share with you today. So let's flip the camera around now and let me show you the few things that really stood out to me as soon as this watch arrived. I try not to have too high expectations of watches before they arrive, because inevitably what ends up happening is that I end up being a little bit disappointed. And it's unfortunate because the watches themselves that turn up are good, but my expectations are so high that they end up being, I don't know, just not quite meeting those expectations. But this Ginault, although I had those really, really high expectations, it actually exceeded those expectations. And that was the first of 6 things that stood out to me with this watch when it arrived. The second being the regulation of the movement. You'll actually see that this watch movement has been put onto a machine and has been checked over a 6-week period. And that's a nice thing to have when you're buying a nice watch. The third thing that stood out to me is the light play on that edge of that bezel. You can actually see that sort of the grip that has been sort of machined into that. It's actually quite angular, and you can actually feel it on your sort of thumb there as you touch it. It kind of looks like it should be sharp, but it's actually not sharp. But because of how they've sort of created it, how they've machined it, it really plays with the light, and it really stood out to me as soon as I got this one out in the light. And that takes me onto the fourth thing, because it's still the bezel that I'm talking about, and it's the bezel action. It is an incredible bezel action. It's quite interesting actually, because it has quite a loud click, but you don't really feel the clicking as you move it. It just feels like a nice, solid, sort of, I don't know, almost a consistent sort of movement with a very, very minor sort of lump to it, but it has a nice click to it. It's a soft yet clicky bezel, and it really stood out to me. And the fifth thing that stood out to me was something that I sort of expected, because I've had hands-on with a watch from this brand before, and that is the overall quality of this watch is actually outstanding. Honestly, there aren't that many watches that I have ever got hands-on that have this feel. And when I do get a watch that has this feel in hand, I have to point it out because it is extra special. This is one of those watches where you hold in your hand and you close your eyes so you can't see it, and you can just feel that it is a really well-made, luxury sort of feeling watch. Partly to do with the bracelet, but I think it's partly the machining and the sort of finishing, and I don't know, it's just one of those watches that you feel in your hand and you go, yes, this is something a little bit extra special. And that does continue on to wrist. and it is the sixth thing that has stood out to me, is the actual on-wrist experience. It is perfectly weighted, balanced. It feels soft on wrist, if you know what I mean. Like some stainless steel can feel a little bit hard or a little bit sharp. This feels soft on wrist, and it just feels nice, weighted correctly, but also just a really nice size for my 17cm wrist too. But those don't even really scratch the surface on how good this watch truly is. Now, I want to make it very clear that this is not a sponsored video. I'm not making any money out of it. I'm not getting a free watch. And I want to say that because I'm going to say quite a few positive things about this particular watch. And I'm talking about the watch, not any of the background or the story. I'm talking about this watch that is in front of me, because this watch that is in front of me is absolutely outstanding, and it is worth having that pointed out, because I know a lot of people have ideas about this brand, and perhaps I might go into that in some future videos when I talk about it. But what I do like to do, no matter where a watch comes from, no matter what the backstory is, I'm keen just to explain and share my thoughts about the watch that's in front of me, that's in my hand, that I'm wearing on my wrist. And I'm going to do that whilst wearing this over the next sort of few weeks. I'm hoping to be able to hold on to this one for a while because it has only been lent into the channel, but I think I'm going to be able to have it in my collection long enough and actually get the opportunity to wear it for long enough to come back and give it a proper in-depth review. But whilst we wait for that one, maybe you might want to check these two videos out next.